A third of the people love you, a third don't care about you, and a third hate you. So you concentrate on the third that love you and you go for it.
I think the greatest Achilles heel for leaders is they don't give themselves time to think.
So my journey is one of those, like, there are a lot of detours. There's a lot of going off on the side roads.
Thrive Out listeners, you're in for a treat. We're here with Jamal Mashburn, Jesse Itzler, the John Maxwell, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, New York Rangers great Mike Richter, Lisa Lampanelli, Mary Carrillo.
Oh, how nice.
I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur.
Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and thrive loud.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a former NFL wide receiver, having been a member of the Colts, Seahawks, and the Redskins, that is now considered one of the most impactful speakers of this generation. He reaches over 60 million people weekly through his various social media outlets and nonprofit Rehab Time organization. He's a global speaker, travels the world, sharing his message of creating lasting change in life. Thrive Loud listeners, Trent Shelton. Trent, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on, man. It's an honor. I appreciate you.
Before we hit record, we were commenting on hairstyles, and Trent obviously has a little bit more hair, as you'll see in the show work, the artwork for our podcast episode, than I do. So I'll just be a little jealous of you, Trent, throughout the episode.
You look good, man. It fits you, bro. It fits you for sure.
So Trent, from the playing field to the stage, I've actually seen you perform, and you are one upbeat, motivational man. So what I kind of wanted to do is bridge the gap a little bit here for our listeners that aren't as familiar with you. If you could share kind of how, when you left the playing field, how this became your calling.
Yeah, for sure. So towards the end of my football career, it was probably 2009 was my last year playing NFL-wise. And so I tried to pursue other things, arena football, some other leagues. And in that process, I got an invite to a speaking engagement. And I had done some speaking before, NFL stuff or college stuff, here and there, but nothing as far as in like, I guess I would say serious speaking. And so it's an event. It was an event in Dallas, about 2,000 to 5,000 kids. It was a lot of people there, a lot of kids there. And the guy, Jonathan, he actually was my friend at Baylor. Played football with me at Baylor, played with me with the Redskins briefly. And he just said, man, like, I see something you don't see in yourself. And he's like, man, I know you might be scared. And I was actually, he's like, just do it. And I did it. And on that stage, I was terrified. I forgot everything I prepared the night before, froze up, man. And it was impactful in a way that I can't really explain. I just knew in that moment, that 5 minutes, I knew that football was done. It wasn't what I was supposed to pursue anymore. And this new avenue, which is, rehab time and speaking, was the avenue that my calling was calling me to. So at that moment, I stopped playing football. Literally that day, I quit. I was supposed to go to New Orleans. The next day, I said I wasn't coming, and I just went full force into rehab time.
So now I have to jump to this because it is really funny. When you play, whether college football or at the highest level of the NFL, you're in front of 50,000, 70,000 people. And you're putting your body out there. When you get out on stage in front of a whole bunch of kids, you get nervous and you blank out. Isn't it ironic, though, now 10 plus years later since then, how that has kind of this, how do you feel now right before you hop on stage and you're about to energize a crowd?
I always have positive nerves, man. Like I tell people all the time, I feel like if you're not somewhat, I wouldn't use the word nervous, but that's the best way I can explain it. But if you're not somewhat nervous, then to me, you don't care. Like,
right.
And so, but when I'm nervous, I realize this. I realize usually I'm nervous because I'm worrying about the wrong things. Like, I'm trying to think about my speech, and I'm like, well, if I don't know it now, then it's too late. Or I'm trying to think about how I'm going to look, or if I'm going to mess up, or how the audience is going to respond. And all these things are going through my brain, and I'm realizing that I'm not focused on what I should be focused on, which is just going up, showing up, and serving the audience. And so when I tell myself, my favorite thing to tell myself backstage is like, stop being selfish. And
nice.
It like sends a trigger through me that gets me focused just on serving, and it helps every time.
I love that. That is a great message, because it really is. It's about the crowd. It's not about you, even though you're
Yes.
the vehicle to deliver it. So let's talk about what you talk about, because it's actually really interesting. We'll dive into your book in a little bit, but you have some really great messages, very purposeful, very motivational. And I kind of want to know where it comes from. So dive a little bit into your topics, and I'll go further.
Yeah. So one of my main topics is not the greatest, yes, but that is a topic that I speak about also, but it's the championship mindset. And that's what I've been speaking about probably the last few years on a lot of stages. And that mindset came from sports. It was understanding at the end of the day, like high level people operate. So whether it's Peyton Manning or whether the people I ran across in my life, a high level father, whoever that lives at a high level speaker. And I realized that they have these 5 traits, which is commitment, discipline, consistency, faith, and heart. And so that came from that, realizing in my life when I was winning these championships, what went into that. And then another part of what I talk about, probably the main part that people know me for, is the self-worth component. And, I'm big on that. And the self-worth and the reason why I tell people all the time, like, you don't lose yourself if you lose something or someone. Obviously, when I lost football, I lost myself, but it was also a promise that I made to one of my friends that committed suicide, because he lost a lot of things in his life. And ultimately he lost his life because of those things. So it's my promise to him to make sure that nobody else, if they felt that way, I wanted to help them know that they are enough and they still can overcome and turn the chapter. So a lot of my content, a lot of my speeches, 99% of it comes from personal experiences, either what I went through or sometimes what I'm currently going through.
Trent, any of the coaches or leaders or I guess role models you had growing up kind of inject some of those rules that, and as you created your key talking points and what you speak about, you ever think, like, obviously you take different pieces of your life and it adds to your story, and any that you can think of specifically that helped bring that all together, those personal individuals or, that you had throughout?
Yeah. My father is one. My dad is incredible. He's a big catalyst to just me as a speaker. I think my dad is the best speaker in the world. Maybe I'm biased, but seeing him since I was a little kid, he's a pastor. And so I've seen him. You wouldn't understand unless you lived here, but people knew my dad more than they knew me. And not just from church, but my dad, even at basketball games or football games, like he would like lead the crowd in these cheers. It's crazy. Like I have to sing the link after, even in college at Baylor. And so even just seeing him inspired me, and also the lessons that he gave me every single day growing up. And then I'm a sponge, bro. Like, I could name probably, 100 people that aren't really famous or known that's helped me along the journey, whether it be my grandparents, whether it be my friends. So I'm a sponge of life. So I'm always observing. And that's the funny thing too, is that a lot of people expect me to be like what's the word I'm looking for? Super extroverted. And I'm not. I'm an introverted person all the time. Like I'm probably the quietest person in the room. And a lot of people can't believe that. But it's because I'm that student, I'm that sponge, and I'm always like observing and taking things in. So I learn from everything and everybody, honestly, too.
The Greatest You, which is, the book came out on May 7th. And I'll give the subtitle here, which I actually think is even more important than the title: Face Reality, Release Negativity, and Live Your Purpose. Let's dive into this Greatest You. When you put this book together, was this more of things that you've learned for your lessons that you knew how to make yourself the greatest Trent Shelton? Or was this advice and things that you knew that you could relay and help others do as the message that they can learn from? So is it more about what you've done to make you the greatest you, or how others can make themselves the greatest me?
I think it's both, to be honest with you. I think it's both. I think it's these are definitely the things that I applied to my life. So I think it started there. But also I know these are things that people can apply to their lives also to help them become their greatest version of themselves.
I always laugh, by the way, that don't run from your battles. I have a very good friend who was a running back in growing up, and he literally was running from his battles. That's the only way he knew how to do it because they were chasing him all the time. So in your career, as you've been progressing and speaking more and more, obviously, look, everyone hits different challenges in their lives. How do you take a setback and kind of spin it on its head?
Yeah, what do you mean as far as basically making it into like a comeback?
Yes, exactly. How do you make your minor setback into a major comeback?
Got you. I think it's meaning, man. I think in life we're always in control of our perspective is one, which some I love to talk about, is your power or your prison. But also your control of your meanings and your definitions on how you define life. And so I just made a video about this the other day. It's crazy because at a point in my life, you could have never told me that when I was in my pain, when I was getting cut from the NFL, like you could have never told me that this would work out for my good. You could have never told me that this was going to strengthen me or lead me to something better. And so now when I look back, those things had to go quote unquote wrong in order for the life I'm living right now to go right. And so that's how I look at everything. I could say, and it's crazy that when people are like, how can you say this is power? I just choose to find the positive in everything. So anything I go through, any setback I experience, I say it's power, because I know if I allow it to, I can learn something from that struggle or that loss that a win or a perfect day could never teach me. And I guess it comes from sports, because I just know playing sports, it wasn't the games that you won that taught you the most. It was the games that you lost. It was on watching yourself on film that was a bad game for you, and you made those corrections, where if you had a perfect game, there was nothing to correct. So I just look at life like that.
So Trent, this is a question. I'm kind of saying this with a little bit of a smile, because it almost, as ridiculous as it is, often professional athletes have issues while they're competing on the field, their off-field antics, problems. Yeah. The NFL has had a lot of them. Let's just say that. And I would imagine the NFL would look to you as someone to come back and, to deliver messages to a lot of the players, and maybe even your alma mater as well, and going in to speak and having to help them gain a little bit of perspective to someone who's been through it. I know you see this often, and you probably, anytime you turn on SportsCenter or any of the news, you see a headline, a highlight, and you cannot believe that it continues. Let's talk about, first of all, how you would address former, current players or people who are younger than you or other college students as well, on the messages that you can give to them to help them gain perspective from what they're doing. And then I have a second part of that question.
Yeah. So I definitely relate to that 100%, because, I was that guy, and I wasn't, I wasn't a guy that got in trouble, because obviously I never made the news or anything like that. But I understand how hard it is to handle that lifestyle, especially if you come from nothing. You're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, all this type of money. You're around celebrities that you used to see on TV. So it's very hard. Everybody's praising you. So if you don't have standards, if you don't have a vision of where you want to go, if you don't understand this, and I think this will be the main message that I tell them, that it's going to be over. Either you can make it be over quicker by doing dumb stuff because you are replaceable. I don't care who you are, you're replaceable. Or it's going to be over at some point anyway. And if you're not preparing yourself for life after sports, meaning how you carry yourself, the relationships that you build, your character building, then it's going to hurt you at the end of the day. And you see so many athletes go through that. And when it's over, they don't know what to do with themselves. And some of them even go as far as, suicide. We've seen that before. So my message to them would simply be that, like, let it be a vehicle, use the vehicle to allow this sport to take your life to a whole nother place after sports, and just know that it's going to be over one day. So operate like that.
And I'll make that second part of the question I was going to go with is, what can these leagues or the universities do, or is it even their responsibility to do it? Because it is such a mixed message, right? Let's call it what it is. We are paying you to play sports professionally. It is the most competitive environment you could ever be in. And you also now are going to put money and fans in the seats. But at the same sense, we want you to be, respectful and be a good citizen and all this different stuff and whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Is there something the league could be doing better? That's the NFL. That's any sport. It doesn't matter. Something they could be doing better to improve this ongoing challenge. And there's great people like you who have not gotten in trouble. Good news, you're not in the headlines. But the headlines you're making are all about positivity.
Yeah.
What can they do to make this problem maybe just minimize and eventually go away?
Yeah. So that's a great question, man. And this is something like, sports is my heart. Helping athletes is my heart. I do a lot of it behind closed doors, and I would definitely like to do more. I have done some because it's so important. And I'm what they have set in place now. So I'm speaking from a place of not knowing exactly, but speaking from a place of when I was there and what they didn't have. They're not. Nothing is set up, at least to my knowledge, especially back then when I was playing, to prepare these guys for what's coming, right? For life after sports, how to handle all these things. And usually what happens is, I'm going to just be real.
Yeah.
They might bring somebody in that you can't relate to.
Right.
It's like they'll talk about certain stuff, but you don't see you in them. It's like, it's like somebody trying to talk to you about addiction and they never been through it. It's like, why should I listen to you? So I think bringing people they can relate to, that's younger. I'm not trying to say even me, but maybe it's someone that's even younger than me that they can look at and be like, okay, cool. Like I can relate to this guy. This is what happened. Also from someone who has lost something, and because I think that's the reality check for me. That's what always scared me when you brought the person in that was in my position that did something they shouldn't have done and they lost everything. And they're telling you this. And so I always related to that. And also mental health is very important. I think the league doesn't do, maybe they do. I can't say they don't, but mental health checkups, like talking to these guys, because I'm not trying to make excuses, but the thing is, it's like they're gladiators, right? You train them to hit, and do all these things. And then you want them to turn off the switch at certain times. And it's hard to do that, especially when you've been trained hours every single day to operate like a beast. And then you want them to turn off the switch and contain them in a cage outside of the field. And you see a lot of athletes struggle with that because they don't know how to turn off that switch. And so I think all of that combined, needs to be talked about and worked out.
I just saw Any Given Sunday recently, and any one of those movies are always controversial and they're interesting, but they featured the craziness of what happens outside of the, how the field and the battlefield of life and the battlefield on the field was pretty similar. And highlighting it is, it's sometimes important. I agree with you. Turning that switch on and off is not easy. All that being said, I'm with you. Giving better mental health coaching would also really help to someone they can relate to. Good call.
And one thing just to highlight, like one thing I feel like was very great, like and it's just even the smallest things will help. Like when I was with the Colts in 2007, you rarely seen any trouble from that team. And Coach Dungy was the head coach, and every single Monday or Tuesday, whenever we came in, he would call it his after 12 a.m. rule. And literally he would show us every arrest that happened in the NFL was after 12 a.m. And it puts, like, even to this day, I still think about that. Oh, it's after 12. Let me get home. Because nothing bad, just bad things happen after that. So he put that seed in us. And I think it reflected a lot. So just having coaches that care too about their players, like in a genuine way, I feel like helps in organizations that care.
Yeah, and nothing good happens after 2 a.m. I guess he bumped it up 2 hours. He went with the Mountain Time Zone because he knew we had a game that week. All right, so let's pull back the curtain and learn a little bit more about Trent Shelton here. So Trent, I love asking guests on this program this question. You have off days. You've been speaking and you're traveling all over the place. You're working with all your different groups and helping people around the world, but we can't always be upbeat and positive every single day. So when you are not thriving, who or what practice do you seek to help get yourself back on the thriving track?
It's what I call protecting my peace. And I go out in nature. I go seek nature, man. It's my getaway. I have trails here, but if I'm anywhere, I'll try to find some trails and just get out in nature. I believe nature heals. I always say I feel like it's God's natural medicine for the soul. And so a lot of times my phone doesn't work. I have one phone that I can be reached on that my wife, obviously, and my kids have that number, but the other phone is put away. And even with that phone, I mean, the connection is pretty bad in the trails. And so that's what I do, man. I disconnect and just reconnect to my soul and just analyze, think, pray, appreciate all those things. Helps me a lot.
I like that. We have a lot of guests, Trent, that go in the outdoors and need it. And I think it is important because we do spend a lot of time inside.
Yeah.
Although in Texas in the summer at the time we're recording this, there are days.
Oh, I gotta go before 7 a.m. for sure. Yeah,
it's gotta be early or late.
Exactly.
Let's do the plug section here, the admin part. Share with the listeners all the places we can find your new book, your site, all that stuff, social media links. You have a huge social media following, so we do want to tap into it. We'll put it all in the show notes and link it all up, but it always sounds better when it comes from you.
For sure. So my website is trentshelton.com. If you go there, I mean, it'll lead you to basically everything. The book, you can find it at thegreatestyoubook.com. It's available on Amazon, Target, anywhere they pretty much sell books as far as the major retailers. It's available there. And my social media, it's at Trent Shelton for everything. So Facebook, just put at Trent Shelton. I'll pop up Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube also.
So now we're going to have a little fun here because I'm going to dive in here. I don't know who does your social media site, but kudos to them because they do a great job. Constant interaction. You're very much involved. You do your videos. How much time do you spend a day allocating to communicating to your community? Because you have a big community and you do it often. So
1 to 2 hours. I would say closer to 1. 2 hours if I have a day where I'm just super free, but I always spend 1 hour in my inbox responding to people, looking at comments. And the reason I do that is because 1, I want to help people. And then for 2, it lets me know, just connecting with my audience and what they need and what they relate to and stuff like that. So I know what content to put out just based upon interacting with them.
2 more questions, Trent, before we take you home here. All right. You knew this one was coming because you're a fan of the show and you know we always ask it. What's your all-time favorite movie?
Coming to America. For sure.
We haven't had that in a while. I think we have had it. So what is your favorite part or what is it overall about?
My favorite part, man, the whole movie. So my favorite part, dang, that's tough, man. It's either Randy Watson when he's on stage singing. I believe the children are our future, or the barbershop scene for sure.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
Where's the spoon? I found it.
Yeah. Soup too hot. Soup too. Yeah, man.
I did hear, there is another one coming.
I know. I heard. I was like, please don't toy with me like that, because I would literally be. It's like one of those things. Like I want it to be, but also I don't want it to be if it's going to let me down. It has to be. It has to be good.
There's something to be said of doing a movie 30 plus years after it came out, and kind of bring in some kind of unique story that you'll get a new audience for. But obviously, you're never going to make everybody happy.
Yeah, that's true.
They're bringing Top Gun back in 2020, and supposedly Tom Cruise is still flying jets. So who knows? All right, now we're going to wrap it up with this. You often speak and you have these great audiences that you talk to. Mm-hmm. Every speaker has kind of like I'd love to do that gig. What's the big, hairy, audacious gig instead of big, hairy, audacious goal? What's the VHAG for Trent Shelton? A certain opportunity for you to deliver your message down the road in the future, or maybe it's already on the calendar.
You know what? I'm just go with what popped up in my mind. I would love to speak at like the ESPYs or something.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be good. I like that. That's a really cool bit. They seem to have a fun party in this when they do that one. So
exactly.
Trent Shelton, man, it's been brief. We had a lot of fun. I can't wait to hear more of your great messages out there. Continue to do what you do, man. The Greatest You will promote all the links to the show, and it all starts with you. So I think you're doing a great job of living as a true role model, but also as an inspiration to so many people. And thanks again for everything you do, Trent.
Man, thank you again, and thanks for sharing your platform, and you just keep impacting lives, man. Let's get it.
You got it, Trent. And to all our Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And be brief, be bright, be gone.
But you see, I love the Lord. You understand what I'm saying? I love the Lord. And if loving the Lord is wrong, I don't want to be right. Hey, Mike.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.